Test, test, test. What's going on, DFS Army? It's Craig Bennett, aka Cash Cake here. Gonna go over Showdown slate for both DraftKings and FanDuel. We got three nice slates for the Thanksgiving slate. I already did videos for the first look for FanDuel and DraftKings for the 3-gamer, but I thought I would come in here. They have some really nice contests up for all three Showdown slates. So I'm going to tackle the Houston at Detroit. I think it's should be a great game. It's the first one on the docket here. I think I'll do the other two, but I'm going to put them behind the paywall. But for this first one, I'm opening it up for everybody, kind of talk how I'm going to attack it for both DraftKings and FanDuel, because I think it is definitely different. If you got any questions, just pop them in here and I'll answer them as we go. But it should be a fun game. We do have a little bit of news that we're waiting on this game for sure. That'll dictate some of this, and it'll dictate the projections as we get the news. But I think there's definitely, some ways we can attack it. I'm going to start with DraftKings first. So I'm here at DFS Army. If you're not a member of DFS Army, head on over, use promo code CashCake, dfsarmy.com, save yourself 20% and get access to those other two videos. And any questions you might have, I will answer them in chat. I'll be there all today. Got college basketball going. Going to start building some lineups. Got cheat sheets up for that. We got a little bit of college football today, a big college football slate tomorrow. But we're talking about the Showdown slate here and how to attack it. So let's just dive into this thing. Again, this is our optimizer over at DFS Army, the domination station. Right now I have DraftKings selected, Showdown, got Houston and Detroit here. The big thing is picking your captains. So you'll see some people that will give you 10, 12, 15 different captains to choose from. And maybe that you need to narrow it down. Even if you're doing 150 lineups, I'm a firm believer that you need to take some stands, and especially at the captain position. It's too hard to win these as it is. And I would much rather take stands at the captain and give myself more of a chance to hit the nuts than trying to play a ton of captains. So that's the first thing that we need to do, is figure that portion out. So let's just dive into this and see what captains we do like. I like to stay around 5 captains if I can. Sometimes I'll go up a little more. Sometimes I might feel like this is the nut guy. This is who I want. Like I said, it's a little bit different on FanDuel, where you usually play the quarterback up at the MVP slot. And I think it's very clear cut on this slate for FanDuel. But here on DraftKings, Deshaun Watson is definitely in play. He gets it there with his legs. He does a little bit of everything. He's the highest projected player on the slate. It's really hard not to have him in our captain pool. So we're going to go over here. I like to exclude them all from the captain and just put the guys that I want in here. So from the captains, I want Deshaun Watson. Definitely want Will Fuller. Usually on DraftKings, I'm focused on more on the pass catchers and the wide receivers. In a slate like this, where it's a high total, we got Fuller should go up against C.J. Jackson. I have no problem here. We already know Cobb is ruled out here, so it should be more targets for Fuller and Cooks. Cooks has a 20% red zone target share. That should go up. Cobb was sucking up 15% of those red zone targets. So, he's a deep down threat. If he hits 2 bombs and 2 touchdowns, he's probably going to be in the nut captain lineup, even whatever Watson does. So I definitely going to want Will Fuller in my captain slot here. Matthew Stafford, I'm going to just pass on, even though I think that, they're going to have to move the ball here a little bit. He just doesn't get it done with his legs. He doesn't run. I would much rather take Watson here. I think he's got way higher of a ceiling, and not saying you can't play him and make that decision, but it's a decision that I'm going to make where I'm just going to fade Stafford in my captain position. Again, you got to make some of these hard decisions when you're building this, because if you have too many captains, it's really hard to build that nut lineup or have at least enough bullets if you're running 150 to get in there. So like if you're building a cash lineup, I would just go with Watson. I think we have enough guys down in this low range on the Houston side, on the pass catching side, that I think we can easily go there. So if I was building a cash lineup on DraftKings, I would just plug in Watson. But for MME and tournaments, I'm going to try to pick out the best 5 I want. Same thing here. We're going to throw in Cooks as well. Cooks got that matchup against Jason McCourty. Again, really like Cooks in this matchup with no Cobb, just more targets for him. They love to throw the ball here with no Bill O'Brien around. I talked about it before. They're top 5 team when it comes to neutral pass rate. So I definitely want those 2 guys in my pool. So now I have a total of 3 all on the same team. Quick question from Wegner. Are you planning on doing ownership projections for showdowns? Yes, I do. I'll do them. I'll drop them sometime today, Wegner. So I'll have them. I'll have them in there. Back to the captain slots here. Come down here, Kenny Galladay. This is a big question mark. Monday I thought more that he was going to play. He logged a limited. He didn't participate in practice Tuesday, which worries me a little bit. If he plays, I definitely want a piece of him up at captain. That would give me 4. I know that's a ton. But I think he's the guy that has the most upside on this team if he's going to play. So this is where it really hinges on it. I'm going to lean that he doesn't play it when I'm just in this particular build. I'm going to lean that he doesn't play. So I'm not going to throw Kenny Galladay in this. Not saying if he does play, that's the guy that I want. But if he's not going to play, we have to look at Marvin Jones down here. We got to look at TJ Hawkinson. Those are some of the guys we got to look at on the Washington side. Marvin Hall, even if you wanted to get sneaky, he's 6,900. He's priced up if you want to take a shot at him. But for generally the guy that has the highest upside, I think we're looking at probably Marvin Hall or TJ Hawkinson. And if Galladay is out, I'm probably leaning on one of those 2 guys, maybe both. If Galladay's playing, then I'm probably just going Galladay. I'm going to lean on this. I'm actually going to throw say Galladay's out. I'm going to play Jones and I'm going to play Hawkinson here and play them both in here. And I might have a little bit bigger of a pool and make some hard decisions once we get there. But, guys, I'm just kind of thinking about and just kind of talking through my process here. Another guy we got to wait on for news is Deandre Swift. Now, he was a limited participant in practice on Tuesday. So we'll just keep on the news. And if he does play, I love Swift, man. If Patricia, when he came out 2 games ago and was like, this is our starting running back, and he was actually true to his word and he got a lot of run. So if that's still the case, I'm going to want a little Swift, because if Swift does get up there and get a few touchdowns, puts up 100 yards, maybe another 40 in the air, then he has a chance to be in the nut lineup. So we'll add Swift in there. I want 0 Duke Johnson. The way they've been running Houston running backs in general, they've just been running them up they're not getting him in space. If Duke Johnson is ever going to do something, they have to get him in space. They can't just keep running him up the middle. He's just not a good running back. If you get him in space, he's got enough, ability to maybe make some things happen. But, he's been chalked the last 2 weeks and completely just dusted yet. Like, again, until I see them move him, it's a great matchup. I mean, it's a great matchup against the Lions. Maybe he can find some space against them. I'm just going to take a stand and not have Duke Johnson. I'll have him in my flex, but I'm not going to waste a spot and put him in my captain slot here. Then down here, the only people I am interested in, if Swift was not going to go, maybe we could look at a Kerryon Johnson or Peterson. Again, Peterson's more of a FanDuel play. I don't want any of that. I think even if Swift was out, I don't think I want part of that. I think it's going to be more of a pass-heavy game. One guy we can look at is Jordan Akins. He's been getting a lot of targets. He's the pass-catching, tight end out of the crew. He's not extremely cheap. So I don't absolutely love it, but at the same point, you could consider him, if he gets you a touchdown and he put up a monster game. I think it was over 80. I think he had like 7 targets last week, 5 catches for 80 yards. So there is avenues where he can get there. But again, I'm kind of making a hard decision. Yeah, he had 6 targets, 5 catches, 83 yards, no touchdowns. But again, put up 13 fantasy points. So you could make a consideration for him. I'm just going to kind of skip him here. I'm going to move down because if I want to fit in some of these stud wide receivers and maybe a Watson, I'm going to want one of these cheaper Houston tight or wide receivers. So we're going to look for a Kiki Cutie here. Now, we need to know what's going to go on with Swift. Not Swift. Where's he at? Kenny Stills. So Kenny Stills is extremely cheap. He is questionable as well. If he doesn't suit up, I love me some Kiki Cutie. He's going to be the 3rd wide receiver here. Should get a lot of run, a lot of looks. Again, they're a pass-heavy team. So I really want some Cutie here. If if Kenny Stills does play, then it's going to adjust that projection a little bit on QT, and I don't love him as much. Again, another situation on the Detroit side with Amendola. If Amendola plays and we figure out that Galladay is out, then I want a piece of Amendola, especially here on DraftKings because of just the points per reception. So he is just dirt cheap as well. So he's another guy that I want to have consideration as well. So, in Minnesota 3 weeks ago, back on November 8th, he had 10 targets, 7 for 77, 14 fantasy points. You get that at this price tag. So we're going to throw him in there as well. So I know I went over my 5 or 6, like I said, I usually do, but we're going to come here. I got a total of 8, I guess, up at captain. So if I want to make some hard decisions, I can knock some of these guys out, or I can just spread out my ownership a little bit. And maybe I just want to go heavy on a few guys and then do a few here. So what I like to do is I like to set min exposures on my on my captains. That way I know that I'm going to get them in the lineups that I want. So maybe I want to go, maybe I'm like, okay, I like Swift, but I don't think Swift is actually going to get there. And as price at 12.6, maybe I don't want a ton of him, but I want to make sure I have some QT and Amendola. So maybe I want 10% of him, 10% of him. Coming up here, Watson, I'm like, well, he has a real good chance of being in the nuts. Let me give him 20%. That puts me at 40. Fuller, maybe I get 15 of him, 15 of Cook because I like those guys. We're at 70%. Maybe just 5% of Jones. Maybe 5% of Hawk. Maybe we'll go 10% Swift. And maybe I want to go heavier on Cooks. Maybe Cooks is the guy that I want heaviest. Then I like to run 150. Tournament mode, I like one unique, especially on a showdown slate. And then on the flex. On the flex here, now I'm just setting captains. I haven't said anything at flex, but I want to run this and kind of see what some of the lineups look like and see exactly where I'm sitting at. But it's definitely going to be kickers. I have no problem here. The game's in a dome. But it's really hard to build these lineups until we get some concrete information. There's a lot of news that are going to dictate projections on these guys and who we're going to play. A lot of people like to set up a ton of rules. I like to do some rules. So if we have that Swift does play, if Deandre Swift does play, I want to make a rule that I don't want more than, if I'm going to play Swift, I don't want Peterson or Johnson in that lineup. So that is a rule I would make. I don't like to just absolutely force pass catchers to wide receivers because funny things happen in showdowns. I think we saw it just Monday. A few people tied for first place in the showdown on DraftKings, and it was a lot of skill players without a lot of quarterbacks. And so that can happen. And so I don't want to limit myself. I would rather just decide my market share on the player than actually set rules, that's going to limit whatever that my builds can build. Now I'm still going to look at it. And again, if Swift plays, I don't want to have a lineup where I have Swift, Peterson, and Kerryon Johnson together. So that's where I would set a rule. I don't want that. So you can come in here and you can set your rules real easier. So if I came in here and I'm like, all right, I have Deandre Swift is in flex, then stack no less than 0 players of Kerryon Johnson, Nadir and Peterson. So just come in here and set rules. You'll never see. I won't set up a ton of them, but that's definitely what I would set. You set the same thing for MVP. I just don't want those guys together if they do play. Again, it's going to be hard to set a lot of these rules until we get confirmation on who's going to play and who doesn't play. But let's come down here and kind of look at some of our lineups. So as you can see, when you set these win percentages as your captain, you're going to get basically what you're looking for. Not might be exactly perfect, but you're going to get similar to what you're looking for. And again, I see, Houston loves to throw the ball a ton. I want those guys up at top. So we come over here and Watson lineup, Kenny Stills, Duke Johnson, Amendola, Swift, Stafford. That's a pretty good looking cash lineup, honestly. Coming down here again, very heavy on the Detroit side where we have Stafford, Swift, Jones, Amendola. And I think with this game, it can go a number of ways. So look at our flex percentages. 80% Amendola is a ton. And again, this is why I said, when those inactives come out 90 minutes before lock, they always do in NFL. We always get that question. Inactives always come out 90 minutes before lock. So that will dictate the projection that we're going to get on Amendola if Galladay is out and vice versa. So it's going to be really hard to build these lineups. Have an idea of what you want. And then once we get those inactives and we update projections, then come back in here and start building things. But, have an idea of what you want for your captains. That you can do now. You can decide, okay, well, if this guy's out, if Galladay's out, then I want to make sure I have, maybe some Hawkinson or some Jones. If Galladay's in, maybe I'm saying I want all in on Galladay only, and I don't want those other guys. So those are some decisions that you're going to have to make. But when we come down here and just kind of see our flex, extremely heavy on both quarterbacks. I don't think I want so much Stafford. Duke Johnson's up there a ton. Kenny Stills. Again, this will adjust too, because if Stills is out, QT is just – I'll have all the QT I can handle on the slate. And, look, Will Fuller and Cooks are way too low here, so maybe I want to go back in here in the DS and boost them up a little bit. It's like in here, and I'm like, Cooks, I'm like, all right, you're sitting at 16. I can do it another way. I can do here and just give him 15%, put him up to 18. Same thing with Fuller. I'm like, no, I think they're both going to have bigger games than that. Give them a little 15% boost and re-optimize and see where I sit. And so it's how I go back and forth. I'll come through once this build is and see the guys that we don't want and take them completely out of the pool. Like, I don't want to have every guy in there. Usually for the cheap guys, I like to take stands. And that way that cheap guy is mixing around with the stud, so I have more of a shot at the nuts. If I'm playing everybody, even on a showdown, it's really hard to give yourself a viable chance at winning if you're not making those decisions. Regardless of how, 150 lineups, there's a lot of people like, oh, you should be able to cover your bases with that. Not even close. Not even a showdown situation. On FanDuel, you see a lot more ties, and that's just because of the nature of the product. And I wish they would make some changes, either add a person or do like they do with basketball, where you have 2X at the top, MVP, star, pro, something like that. I think it would be a better product overall for NFL. So come back here. We didn't touch any of that. Now we can see we got 42% Cooks, 42% Fuller. So that's more what I'm looking to see. So that's basically what you're doing, is adjusting this over and over and over. Maybe we'll bump Swift a little bit if we know he's going to play. Come down here. Again, I probably want a little more kickers. some of these guys I don't want, like Akins. That's way too low for me. 1%. So you got to come in here and adjust his projection. But like Nuata, I don't want that guy. So I'll come up here and make these decisions on my flex. Come down to these turds. Where is Isaac? No, I don't want that dude. He's gone. I know these guys are 200. Jonathan Williams. No, thank you. You're gone. You're not going to make the list. And then these are decisions on these wide receivers. Cephas is not in play if Galladay, Amendola, and the whole crew is back. So those are decisions you can't make until we know for sure these guys are out. So I'm going to just take Cephas off this list, and that's just because, we're saying, okay, Galladay's going to suit up. Same thing with Agnew. Like these guys are not going to play a big role if we see Galladay is going to play. So we're just going to take him out. Pharaoh Brown at 400. Again, weirder things could happen, but I would rather not do this. I'd rather take a chance on Jesse James than I would him. And like I said, Kenny Stills at 1,000. If Kenny Stills suits up, what's up, RC Bremen? How you doing, man? Then he's a guy I want a ton of. If Amendola suits up at 2,200, that's just criminal, especially if Galladay is out. So all this is slate dependent and news dependent. But come through here, I don't mind leaving the defenses in. I don't want a ton of them. Like at 2,800, I would much rather take a shot at QT, So maybe I want to say, no, I don't want the defense lines. But if they somehow get to, get there, they're going to have to get a touchdown and some sacks. So maybe you want to leave them in your pool. Maybe you want to come take them completely out. At 2,800, again, I think I'd rather go up to QT. I think the floor is better there, and I think the ceiling's way higher than that defense. So maybe we'll just take him out completely. The Texans, Stafford's kind of a statue back there. So, maybe we can see J.J. Watt get to him. So maybe we'll leave him in. I want the rest of these guys in my pool. Basically, it's just taking out these turds at the bottom. I'll leave Jesse James in there for now, but I really want Amendola, Stills. Fells I'll leave in there, even though Akins is the guy that I'm, catch some passes. But I'll leave a little bit of Fells in there if he does fall in, and then come back up here and run this thing one more time. But that's basically what you're doing when you're setting this up for DraftKings. Again, get your captain pool set and your percentages in your mind of what you want. That's the first thing that you should do because it dictates everything else. Once you have your captain set and you're solid, and you're like, hey, this is what I want to do, then I can figure out my flex. I don't even want to touch the flex, and all you're trying to do is, once we get ownership projections up in the domination station later today, and I'll first focus on this first game, is it's going to dictate your market share. Are you trying to get over the market or under the market on a guy? That's really all I'm trying to do. I'll let the projections run where I want them to. I might boost guys up, but I'm more worried about that than I am trying to set 25 different rules to make sure I have this and that and look how the lineups look. I don't think you win enough. If you're trying to win the big money, so many weird things happen. I don't want to lock myself in with rules. I said the rules that I do run are more like position based. Like if Swift is going to play, I don't want those other two running backs with Swift because I don't think all three of them are going to get there together. Maybe if QT, if cheap guys plays like QT and Stills, they're cheap enough where I think if they're both in there and they both catch some passes, they could both be in the nut lineup. I don't want to limit them, but maybe I want to limit, maybe I want to say I don't want Akins and Fells in the same lineup, something like that, because I don't see them both getting there. So the point being is, like, if you're playing a cash game, I think you go up with Watson and you build. If Swift plays, you build around Swift. Definitely want Stafford on the other side, and then I really want these wide receivers on DraftKings. I'm even, usually build around running backs. You want Duke Johnson. Maybe this is the week they get him in space, man. But he's been rough and hard to swallow. But the big thing I want to specify on this and just in any showdown is take those stands, man. Get your captain pool down exactly what you want, the percentages that you want. And there might be slates where I only want 2 captains and I'm going all in 50% each or 70-30. Every slate is different. And sometimes we know exactly where the production is going to go. This team's a little bit, they can go a number of different ways. But for instance, if we get to the Pittsburgh game, and if Juju's out, we know that Deontay Johnson and Claypool are probably going to see a ton of work. Those are the 2 guys I want to focus on. So every team is different. Every slate is different. Again, if you're not a part of DFS Army, head on over there, sign up, use promo code CashKeg. I know Josh has done all 3 cheat sheets for the showdowns. And again, I can knock out some more videos for these other 2 showdowns and answer any questions for DFS Army VIP members. I'm going to put those 2 behind the paywall. But I thought I would come in here and answer any questions you guys had. And again, this game so much depends on the news that we're going to have to wait around. This game locks, I think, is at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. So, at 11 o'clock a.m., while you're waiting on your turkey, get those lineups in, then we can decide what we're going to do. So again, if you want to see my captain pool of what I plan on doing, this is kind of way I'm looking at it. I'm going to go very heavy on the Houston side, very heavy on Cooks. It's going to be probably my highest owned captain, followed by Watson, Fuller. And then again, this is considering Amendola, Jones, Hawkinson. This is saying Galladay's not going to play. If Galladay was going to play, then I don't want any Jones, and I probably don't want any Hawkinson. I'm just going to fade that and put that ownership directly on top of Galladay. So with that, this is Cash Keg. Again, head on over to DFS Army, and we have so much to offer, man. And happy college basketball day for everybody out there. And let's get after it. Deuces.